Good morning, it's Lily Newman, and we are in the hot seat. And today we are in the hot seat with a good friend of mine, Roy Newey. Now, Roy has a very eclectic background. He left school at 16 and failed all of his exams. There's a great start in life, with no further academic education because of dyslexia. But having taken on a government role as Deputy CEO for Merseyside, a regeneration company, that was 65 million turnover business with 550 staff and huge growth, he then went on to invest in a company, started off at 3 million turnover and grew it to 180 million, opening in 15 countries. He's worked all over the world, helping governments to tackle poverty. He's worked in India about 250 times, Israel 200 times, South Africa 30, you name it, he's been there, and he must like getting on flights. He was once named as the president of Zambia's 5 wise men for several years. I won't ask what happened at the end of that, Roy. I know you've been a keynote speaker in 75 countries. So much done in so little time. It is brilliant to have you, and you look fantastic.
Thanks, Lily. Great to be here. And well done on all your cakes for kindness, may I say.
Thank you. Yes, well, we will talk about that another time. Your lovely wife is part of the tribe. In fact, fairly instrumental. So I know that you've had cakes flying out of your kitchen this summer. But I want to talk to you particularly about your experience. You always amuse me. I remember getting hilarious texts from you as you were sat next to Robert Mugabe in a very important meeting of African leaders, saying, would you like me to ask him a question? And he's just stood up and called Colonel Gaddafi a nutcase. You have worked with brilliant leaders, really quite dangerous leaders in some way. What have been the critical things that you've taken from your global experience?
Thanks, Lily. I'm really pleased to have the chance to be here, share some thoughts and ideas. And I think on that particular question about leaders, I've come across some amazing leaders, and many of them have built the patchwork quilt of hopefully the leader I've become, either because they've demonstrated some characteristics or some way of behavior that I really didn't want to endorse, or I've seen such graciousness and such leadership that I found it really inspiring. And there's certainly some names that would be up in lights of people that people would know who I've found, incredible and inspiring. But actually, sometimes some of the greatest leaders I've met have been some people who were really trying to make sure they're in the background. Community leaders, people who had nothing, had no resources, had no power, a tiny amount of an opportunity to influence and change something, but were wreaking change in many different ways. And those are the people that really inspired me. And some of the characteristics I think that stand out for me is, number one is authenticity. Mm-hmm. It's the moral ability to lead, not the hierarchical ability to lead. And just because you're the HO or just because you're the chairman, that doesn't rank for me. But people who seemingly had none of the fashion of leadership, none of the fast cars, none of the coiteries of lots of stuff around, the trappings, but people who had amazing sense of authenticity, absolute clarity about the vision, about what they wanted to do, graciousness in the people that they dealt with, strength and determination to walk through brick walls, a belief, the ability to get back up from the canvas when they get knocked down and dust themselves down. And then the important bit, walk back towards the bad people. So you don't get knocked down on the canvas and get yourself back up and walk away. It's to get back up off the canvas and, like we see in those boxing rings, to walk back towards the opponent, back towards the bad guys. Also in my life, I found that, there were many people in my life who I was warned were bad people and to stay away from them. And there's many people who are told were the good people, and you should stick with those. And funny how my life has turned out that one of the things where I've gained real traction in life is to walk towards the bad people, to walk towards the travelers, the troublemakers, and actually invest in them. 8 million people of Romani culture in the UK, the largest disadvantaged group in the world, and yet such warmth, such graciousness, and such an ability to behold and to help people who are passing through their lives. I've worked in many prisons throughout the world, and the people who are found in prison, are not the beasts and the bad people that the media would project, but there's some people who have fell the wrong side of the track but shouldn't be written off for life. And yet some of the great people in life that you're told are the good people, perhaps on closer scrutiny, didn't quite turn out to be the good people that they might have been.
I think it's interesting, it's like Mandela, one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist, and we've seen this across Northern Ireland. We've seen that obviously in Mandela's situation, and you see it around the world, and the media seeks to polarize people, doesn't it, in terms of you're either with us or you're against us. It's black or it's white, and there's no sort of shades of grey in between. Now, how do you, because you have sat at some difficult tables, or what would be labelled as difficult tables, working with leaders that aren't necessarily painted positive, how do you seek to change people's perception of those when they've been painted so negatively?
How do I seek to change the wider audiences?
Yeah.
So I most probably wouldn't. I don't seek to change the world, but what I do is I try and sit around a table and identify those people who I feel I can work with. And because I'm dyslexic, I've been gifted with a great talent of being able to watch people. And I watch people really closely. I remember I was in the West Bank in Israel, and I was in a drug rehabilitation center. And I held forth and said, this, that, and the other, and we're going to do this, we're going to help you in this way, we're going to help you in this way. And I was working through a translator because obviously they were Arabic speakers and I didn't speak any Arabic. And as we left the meeting, I got to the door, and the main leader in the West Bank called the interpreter back. And I could see him remonstrating with the interpreter. He said, and I thought, that's not good.
That's not good.
And I already had 2 bodyguards with me, you know what I mean? I'm in the West Bank, under a blanket in the back of the car to get there. And I thought, this isn't good. So we got in the car, didn't say anything to the interpreter, waited, because you don't know who you're in the car with, waited till we got to Bethlehem, went through the security wall back into Jerusalem. I didn't say anything in the taxi, waited to get back in the hotel, and then sit down with the interpreter, and I said, right, what was all that about? And she said, what do you mean, what was all that about? I said, what was all the... And she said, that's Roy, you over-exaggerate. I said, I know we know where your kids go, and we're going to chop your head off. And I said, I know exactly what all that's about. And she said, it's not, Roy. What they said was, we will be honest with you. We didn't understand half of what he was saying. Even though you translated it really well, we don't quite understand what he said, but we can tell by looking in his eyes that he speaks from the heart. And if he speaks from the heart, we will work with him. Wow. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking to see in the eyes, is this person, is this trade union, is this political opponent, is this competitor, is this supplier, is this member of staff who's been painted as a deviant? Is this person who isn't supposed to be good? What's going on behind the eyes? And can we make good of that? And can we draw them into our space? And can we do good together?
And I love that with you. I know you've worked with so many charities, literally thousands of charities around the world. The work that I do with the Message Trust is so crucial to find what's that nugget of brilliance, that nugget of genius and kindness in the person that you're working with. Doesn't matter what their background, what young offenders institute or prison they've been in. Most people want to do good in their life if they're given the opportunity. But so many people have that foundation of life that they don't have the family that will connect with them, that will support them, that will help to grow the best version of themselves. So I absolutely love that with you. I'd like to come on, if I may, to your fabulous book, Ready, Set, Grow, Make More Money and Keep It. This is an interesting title for me because your heart has been so philanthropic. Let's find the best people. Let's work with the poorest of people. I was really interested to read an out-and-out business book, which it just feels like it's a roadmap for brilliance. Tell me, what was the inspiration for it in the first place?
So I bought into this business in 1999 and with 65 staff, and built it up to 5,000 staff and 180 million pounds worth of turnover. It's fantastic, an amazing journey. And since then, since I sold the business in 2015, I've sat on the boards of over 100 companies, either as a chairman or a non-executive director. And what I've realized is that I've really started to bore myself. I mean, literally,
Bore yourself. Right, okay.
Bore myself silly. Because they say, oh, what on earth can we do about this? And I say, well, right, okay, well, look, it's really quite simple. Just try that, try that, try that. And I'm saying the same things time and time again to people. And what I'd realized after a number of years was that actually in my own mind, I've developed a system, a simple system of how you grow a business. And the system is, stage one, defend the core. Let's do what you're currently doing, but do it brilliantly, fantastically well. Do it really, really well. And if once we've got that we're doing the core really, really well, then the next stage is let's look at some adjacent markets. Let's look slightly outside what you're doing and just nurture, either geographical or a slightly shift on the customer base so that we can offer them and we can develop growth there. And with the extra income and profitability that we generate from doing those adjacent markets, then let's take that to the races. Let's do some big daft stuff. And let's put some money on the horses and take some risks and invest some capital and do some big stuff. Now that might sound really simple. That's the idea. Defend the core, develop adjacent markets, and then do the crazy stuff. But this is what happens. People end up in the core. They lose heart, they lose will, their USPs aren't unique anymore. They lose the will to go on, and so they get fed and tired and bored up. So what they do is they take some of the family silver and they go off and do something daft. They open a pole dancing bar in Altrincham.
Where does that fit into the plan? Yeah.
You're a jam manufacturer in Warrington. Yeah, but we thought this was great. We're a load of money doing this. No. Let's think marmalade. How about we make some marmalade or some mustard, or we don't have to dive off over there, for goodness sake. But people do, and of course, once they do that, they leave the core, they go off and do the daft thing, they lose the family silver, they then trudge back to the weariness of their grey, horrible business that's now in a more of a desperate state, and then they say, oh, and I've got hardly anything left. So the reason why I wanted to put it in writing was, I thought, let's put the simplicity of the system down. Let's get rid of all the academic speed. Let's knock it right back down to basics. Defend the core. Do it brilliantly. Look for some adjacent markets. Then with that money that you extra have created, go off and do some crazy stuff. Because then this is the goose that's laying the golden egg. And the reason why I wanted to do it was because philanthropic things, charities and all that, all wonderful. But they can only operate in a world where people have created wealth and then they've got the wealth to share. So I'm a strong believer in we have to create the wealth, have to run the business well, have to pay our taxes so that we can provide for those people who can't provide for themselves. And with the benefits that we've created from that wealth, then we can go off and do good stuff. So that's the idea.
I mean, absolutely fantastic, and that core is critical, isn't it? And you talk about the why. I know that lots of people, obviously Simon Sinek's talked at length about the why, but it's really important, isn't it, that for me, if you're going to build a business, you've got to think about, why am I doing it? Who am I doing it for? And actually, how am I going to stay in love with this in the difficult days? And that's the critical piece to stop you go off and setting up a pole dancing bar or whatever it may well be. One of your lessons you talk about is climb a mountain every single day in the book that I was reading about. And it is sometimes you've got to get up in the morning and climb a mountain every day. And I remember hearing an interview with Mo Farah when he said, the thing that makes me different is I'm not the better runner, but I am the runner when it is freezing cold, blowing a gale. I will get out there and train every single day. From your perspective, actually, how do you stay on that horse and committed to doing that, particularly when it's difficult?
So the why for me, I'll take you back. So when I was 22, I opened up a restaurant, and my dad would get me up at 7 in the morning, and he'd get up at 7. He was a plumber, and we'd have breakfast together, and then I'd go off to the restaurant. He'd go off to being a plumber. Anyway, this went on quite happily, but say a year into the story, say I'm now 23, I went off to work, and when I got to the restaurant and opened it, I realized that I'd left something that I needed back at home. And so I had thought, oh, blimey. So I headed back to home, got to the front door, opened the front door, went in, and I was really astounded. My dad was sat at the kitchen table, second cup of tea, rolled himself with a cigarette, reading a newspaper. And I looked at him, and he looked at me. I looked at him, and I thought, you shouldn't be here. And he looked at me as if to say, imagine I'm not here. I thought, strange. So I got my thing, whatever it was, calculator, whatever it was, file, whatever. And I didn't say anything. And I looked at him, and I sort of checked on the door and looked at him again, went out, went off to work, worked all day in the restaurant, came home about 7 o'clock that evening and walked in, and my dad was like looking around, and I said, we need to go for a chat. He went, no, we don't. I said, we do, Dad. We need to go for a chat. And we went for a chat. And of course, what I found out was that my dad, who'd worked for a single company in Morton on the Wirral as a plumber for 40 years, had been made redundant. The owner of the business had died. His wife had decided to close the business. The 6 members of staff had been made redundant. And my dad had lost his job 6 weeks ago. And my dad, for 6 weeks, had been feigning that he still had a job.
Right.
Because he couldn't face the indignity. He couldn't face the indignity of telling his wife, telling his family. I said, Dad, what are you doing for money? He said, I've got a bit of redundancy left and your mum doesn't know yet. I went, Dad, you know. And I watched a man who I had enormous respect for lose heart, be broken, because of the importance of work, because of the importance of the dignity that work brings people. And so having learned that lesson myself, then that became my why. And so I, you know, some people say, oh, well, he's a really successful businessman and all that, but I understand how a heart can be broken and the indignity that no work can bring for people. And so that's my why. So when I, you know, as I often do, when you're getting up at 5 and you're heading off to see a customer and whatever, 5 mornings a week, and I think, oh, you know, I'm getting on, this is crazy. I think, hang on, there are people out there that need the solutions that sit in my head. I have a responsibility to pass those on to people because it makes a difference in people's lives. And when I talk about making a difference in people's lives, I've just made, in one of my centres, I walked along and I saw this great big honk of a guy, and he was sobbing, and he was like, you know, he's sort of 6'2" and big hands and sobbing. I said, so I went up to him and said, I'm awful sorry. Have I done something wrong? You know, have we hurt you in some way? Have one of my staff been at? No. It's just, I'm happy. I've been unemployed for 7 years. I'm a minor, and it was up in Yorkshire, and I finally got a job. I've been on your training course. I've got a job, and I'm so overjoyed that the trainer asked me to come back and explain to the rest of the team who are still waiting to get a job what it feels like to have a job back. He says, oh, it's only really when I've been sharing my story with them that I've realized what a journey I've been on. He said, because my kids had stopped calling me dad. My wife had stopped loving me. My neighbors ignored me in the street. He said, and I didn't get out of bed. He said, and the indignity I've been through of losing my job put all those changes into my life. And I said, oh, so he cried, I cried, you know, people like looking at us because there's 2 grown men hugging and crying in the corridor. But then to end on a light note, it was slightly rude, but on a light note, he said, you just don't realize the difference it takes when one of your children first calls you dad again. He said, or when a neighbor acknowledges you in the street because you're going back out to work, they think you've stopped being a labour. He said, but of course the best bit, Roy, is when your wife decides to love you again. And I said, oh, that's so cute. He said, and it's great because sometimes now she loves me twice a night. Oh, okay.
I was starting to get ready going, am I editing this piece out? Well done. But actually, isn't that critical?
But when you talk about when you say something about losing their job, Lily, they lose so much more than their job.
I've seen this time and time again where people lose their identity, don't they? If I am not that particular person, you know, whether it's the lawyer or the miner or the bar worker, you know, it's the person that is actually doing something which is developing an income, giving them a sense of pride. They're not going for state handouts. And we are terrible. We're actually terrible because you notice on introductions to people, often we go, so what do you do? That's one of the first questions, isn't it? And if your answer is claim benefits, that totally reduces that individual in our eyes, and we're all guilty of doing that. Now, you do talk
we say
about
it to women, don't we? We say it to women. We say, "Are you so-and-so's wife?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh.
No, I'm not.
I know the lovely Sam Newey very well. It's not a cat and hex jobs.
Absolutely.
You
Doesn't
get
like being
away with that.
introduced to all the time. Yeah.
Try your very best. You do also talk about, in terms of growing the business, as we've developed the why, we've developed our core. You talk about investing in the fan club, but also employing the best staff in the world. Now, particularly when you're starting out, that's not necessarily possible, is it? So how do we get to the stage, bring our business to that level of growth that we can employ people? And what's your measure of best?
Okay, so if you're Sir Alec Ferguson, you're manager of Manchester United, or Jose Mourinho,
We've moved on from Alex, but yes,
Mr. Klopp, or whoever you are, they don't sit there on a Saturday and think, okay, well look, you're not so bad. You brought your boots, I'll put you out. You're quite good, I'll put you out. They actually spend millions identifying the best of the best of the best in the world. And this is what unfortunately leaders fall into the trap of. I'm going to use my pencil to this is the next book. So it's called The Train. So the idea is that when you start your business, you start off with a train. You start here, and in station A, you invest in the best stuff that you can find at that time. And that might be, say, for instance, for your bookkeeper, that there's a local person, a local lady perhaps, who works part-time from home, and she's prepared to do your books. So as long as every Friday you drop off a Tesco bag with all the receipts in, good enough, by Monday morning she'll have your books done and your checks written out for you, and all you've got to do is sign them. It's great. But the train then moves on. It moves into another station, another station, another station. By the time we get to station D, well, now we need a cash flow for the bank, and now the bookkeeper's having to work 2 days a week in the business. And then by the time we get to station F and station G, now she's having to work full time, and occasionally she can be found in the toilets, overwhelmed with the pressure that the bank is putting on her. And now they want a balance sheet every month, and so actually by the time we get to station I, it's really not fun for her. It's not fun for the staff around them, and the business isn't getting the value out of them, and she feels completely overwhelmed and unable to meet the agenda for the business. Well, it's at that point that the business owner has to sit down and have the honest discussion and say, look, you're fantastic. What you did for us from here to here was amazing. We would never have been able to make that journey without you and the investment you made in us day in, day out. But I'm the driver of this train, and I know this train is picking up speed. And this train's got a long, long journey ahead of it. And there's going to be more and more people getting on, more complications, more complexities. And so we have to be honest with each other. Is this the right train for you to be on? Is this the right place for you? Because I think in a moment we're going to pull into another station and doors are going to open. When those doors are open, I've arranged for a brass band to be on the platform and a big cream cake and a thank you very much and a check in your hand, and I'm going to wish you well. And I'm going to find another opportunity with you, and we'll work together the next few months until you found the right employment opportunity for you. Because I need the best person on this train to help the rest of us get to where we need to go to.
Yeah.
And in doing that, as the doors close behind her or him, as they get off and the doors open, the next person gets on. And this is the financial controller. But now the mindset of the business owner's changed, because he knows that the financial controller who's got on the train, they'll be getting off at station P.
Yeah.
Because then we need the T to get on. By the time we get to station R and S and T, then we get the CFO on, because he's going to take us to the city.
That's the challenge though, isn't it, Roy?
But what I have to drive home to business owners is it's cruel, it's inappropriate to demand from people a level of competence and expertise in the business, which they're clearly unable to give.
Yeah.
We give people chances, we give people training, we give people development, we give people stretch. But I've seen with many people, there's a time when you have to say, look, I think we're at the end of the road.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, for my business, when I got to 180 million, I realized it was time for the driver to get off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's difficult.
The driver get on. And so for all of us, there's an opportunity when we have to get off the train, because the train is more important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is the hardest thing, isn't it, in terms of relationships? You get so many people thinking, well, I've really invested in that person. I really like that person. But like and competency are two different things, aren't they? and liberating them to go and be happy somewhere else in that smaller or medium-sized business when the business is going beyond them is really crucial. Otherwise you end up, you're miserable as the leader because you've got somebody not competent enough to deliver. They're miserable because they recognize that as well, but they're clinging on by the fingertips rather than letting go and flying for a different opportunity.
You've got a psychology tilt to your leadership.
Yes, behavioral.
You've seen people crushed by their job.
Yeah.
You've seen people broken by their job.
Yeah.
You've seen people whose family lives and their marriages and their relationships are damaged by their efforts to try and keep up with the job. That's cruel. So we mustn't do that.
But you're also right in terms of that recognition. I've had directors and CEOs sit the other side of the table me in being in tears, completely in tears, and I'm saying, well, it's not your dream anymore. So why this dream, which for you is turning into a nightmare, why are you trying to go backwards with it? Why don't you let it go and go and do something else? And I have to say, I got a reputation in a couple of businesses where sort of 3 directors came to me on the trot, and within a couple of coaching sessions, they were handing in their notice. And I had some angry CEOs speak to me, but I said, no, actually, I'm helping you to do the best thing for the business, because they've gone beyond where they want to be in this organization. It is so much better for you to get some fresh eyes.
We talk so glibly about the epidemic of mental health issues, and yet we continue to demand and performance manage and press and push people. And much better to get the checkbook. If it was an old lorry, if it was an old photocopier, we'd get the checkbook out and we'd pay our due respects, we'd thank them, and we'd let people go. Yeah. But people struggle with that. I don't get it. You know, because the other thing is that when that finance controller gets on at station H, you know, be under no illusion, they would not have been prepared to get on your train when you were at station A.
No.
In the career profile. And the FD that's going to get on at station S, they won't get on at station H and help you out there because that wouldn't fit their career profile. Yeah. And as I say, for all of us, there's a time to get off our own train, as I found.
And you talk about this in the book in terms of that, understand what you're good at and what your limitations are. And I think that's one of the crucial things. Can I talk to you? Because this is one of my massive bugbears where I think, and I love this, Roy. This is so much the A to Z of how to start and get going and deliver a good company. Can I talk to you about customer service or appalling customer service? Because you think it's not difficult in so many ways for some reason in the UK to be exceptional. If you understand what your product is, if you understand what your market is, if you understand actually why does the customer come to you and what can you do to surprise and delight them, then it's not difficult. But we see all the time, don't we? This is where critical brands fall on their faces.
And I think it comes back to what one thing is a massive underinvestment on behalf of the business in the training that they make available for the staff.
Yeah.
I went to a well-known sports brand, and I was practicing being good with children, which I'm not. And I was doing my best. So it was in the run-up to Christmas, and Sam said to me, I want you to come out and do some shopping. I was like, of course, dear. And so we headed out, and we ended up in a sports shop, and I was practicing being good to children. So this child came up alongside me, he went, hello, and I went, hello. I thought, oh, cute. So I thought, practice, Roy. I said, how are you? And the child went, okay, how are you? I went, fine. And then I said, and are you looking forward to Christmas? And the child went, yeah. I said, great. And I thought, I'm doing well here. And then I said, he said, do you like the trainers? I said, yes, I do. He said, right, which trainers do you like? I said, I like these blue ones. And he went, right. And he went, look, mate, I haven't got all day. Are you buying the trainers or are you not buying the trainers? And I turned around and realized that the child next to me, who didn't know the difference between a tennis shoe or a rugby shoe or whatever, you know, I said, well, what are they good for? He said, I don't know. He said, we do them in blue and we do them in pink. Which one do you want? You know, so when you field staff who know nothing about the product, know nothing about how to ask the right questions, that's when they get fed up. That's when they get demotivated. That's when they just be like, you know, churn. and we pay them a minimum wage, and we don't give them any investment whatsoever, and then we wonder why, you know, they besmirch our brand by giving horrific customer service.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, and there are thousands and thousands of those, aren't there? Yeah, and it does. This is the critical thing, though, and you see it often. People, they go, right, I desperately need a sales manager, or I desperately need a receptionist, or I needed something. There's your telephone. There's the list. Go and do the job without having really any understanding of what does the brand stand for. This is why, for me, your ethos, your brand ethos, your values are so crucial. Your vision and where each individual sits in that vision. And I know you talk about that in the book, that you can have the most exciting, exceptional vision of hundreds of millions of growth. We're going to become an international brand. If people don't know where they sit on your bus, they will not have buy-in to it. They don't know what role they play.
The customer service thing that any of us can ever hear somebody say to you is when you have a bit of an issue and you get a member of staff and you walk up to them and say, blah, 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 and they turn around to you and they say, Roy, I'm going to sort this for you.
Yeah.
And you just think, oh,
thank you.
I'm going to sort this for you. Okay? I'm going to sort this for you. And that's all you want, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes we get too carried away in getting the staff to sort of do somersaults and backflips and hi and have a good day and it's actually just really basic. I've had some great service off some really miserable people because they just did the things that I wanted them to do, and I've had some really shabby service off people with a plastic smile. So, you know, we just want people to be authentic. We just want people to say, yeah, I'm here. If you need me, I'm over there, or whatever it might be. Or I'm going to sort this.
And that number one thing is tuning up the listening, isn't it? Not making assumptions when somebody comes to speak to you, oh, this person's going to be a pain in the posterior, but actually tuning up the listening. What is the real problem? And then what can I do to resolve it? And I think that's one of the worst attributes of so many leaders, both in terms of external facing towards their clients, when clients get something they didn't necessarily want, but also internal listening towards how do I inspire and motivate and engage with my people. Now, this is a crucial thing for you, Roy, because you've worked in businesses where you've headed up literally hundreds and thousands of staff. How do you maintain that motivation in your people?
I think you've got to make sure that you have clearly articulated what the vision is.
Yeah.
So, you know, when the vision in my business was improving people's lives, and I used to say to this, I'd have like a room full of people, you know, 500 people or 1,000 people or 2,000, 3,000 people. I'd be on the stage giving you like the talk, and I'd say, listen, if I ever sat or stood in front of one of our customers, and you ever have that sense of dilemma as to, do I do this for them or do that for them? I want you to hear me whispering in your ear, improve their life. Just hear me say, improve their life, and then do that. So whichever improves their life the best, just go off and do that. Because if you ever come back to me and say, we worked with 500 single parents in Bolton, and actually we didn't really do them any good, but we made a load of money. I said, that's the last conversation we'll ever have.
Yeah.
If you come back to me and say, we did an amazing project in Bolton, we helped 500 single parents get employment and look after their kids in a different way and educate themselves, and actually, Roy, we only broke even or we lost a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I can live with that, but don't ever come back and tell me we didn't improve people's lives. Now, if you say that often enough and regularly enough, and it's short enough, you know, vision statements that run to three sentences, nobody, even the CEOs don't remember them.
Yeah, yeah.
But improve lives, you know, do our best. These are get it done. These are the simple ones, and you impregnate it, and you behave in that way yourself, day in, day out. That's what we're looking for.
Brilliant, brilliant. I just want to talk to you because obviously lots of these tips, it sounds pretty formulaic and straightforward. You think this is quite easy, but we're in uncharted territory at the moment, aren't we? We've all, or people of our age, we've all been through recessions historically, but I don't think we've ever been through such a global crisis. So how do we help people to get out the other side of it so they don't get so fixated on with what's in the moment, what's happening with COVID now, that they lose sight of where they want to go when we're out the other side?
Okay, it's a great question. I think in the context of businesses, we've got to stay true to the pillars which are about how business is well run. So communicating with the staff, motivating the staff, incentivizing, training, listening to customers, adapting, being agile, changing our product or our service to meet the market need and the dynamic. We've got to be doing all those those pillars, those things. COVID doesn't change any of those. We don't suddenly want to start to be abusive towards the staff, not speak to them, develop products that the customers don't want, overprice or underprice, lose our margins. All the opposite side of the pillars. We don't want to start doing that. So we stick to the pillars, but it is true that COVID has changed things. But COVID hasn't changed everything. It hasn't sort of put the world, upside down. We're not sort of going to get up at midnight and work all night and ride around on camels and suck sewage through a tramp sweaty sock. Life hasn't completely gone haywire, but there is 6% that's changed. And so the intelligence of the business owner and the senior leadership team is, what's the 6% in your market that's changed? What are the peculiarities that are now different than what they were before? We maintain the pillars, we don't lose the plot, we stay focused, but let's stay agile to make sure that we've picked out the 6%. So with teams that I'm working with, it's like, what is the 6% in our market that's changed? And how do we stay agile? And how do we stay true to the pillars? That's what I'm doing.
Identifying, isn't it? What are the things? And I always say, it's our 3 circles. What can I control? What can I influence? If it's stuff that I can't control or influence, then we've got to let it go, and then we move forwards from that. You talk in your, and I love, one of the things I love about the book is your regular 10 golden tips at the end of your chapters. And one thing that you talk about later on in the book is about the only hope for the future is your pipeline. This is something that is crucial, that so many of my businesses that you go into and you go, hang on a second, you've got a client that's worth 70% of your income. What happens when that client leaves? What are you doing not to prepare for that? Can you just talk to me about the opportunities in pipeline, and how do you get new business into your pipeline if it's not necessarily people that you know directly?
So you've got what I call sales. And sales is whatever's happening in the immediate term. So this week, next quarter, even the quarter after, anything that's happening in the next 3 to 6 months, that's what your sales job is. And if you go back a stage from that, now you've got business development. And this is the people that we're speaking to, not about the sale, but about building relationships, building trust, building respect, gaining insights, adapting our behavior, so that eventually, if we talk to them enough, and I talk very much about the know, like, trust shape, so I've got this outside here, we've got people who we don't know. Well, they're never going to buy what we're selling if they don't know about us. So stage 1, let's get them to know us. And we do that by the website, by going to conferences or exhibitions or e-shots or writing books or whatever it is we're doing, so that people get to know us. Once they get to know us, then hopefully enough of them decide they like us, because the way we behave, the way we've conducted ourselves, and we've got them that they like us. And then finally, if we continue to work with them and to give them information, to tell them what's the best train to get to Euston before 9 o'clock in the morning, and where we get that plastic bottle from, and help people out and be dutiful with them, in the process of getting to like us, they then decide eventually they trust us. Now, once they trust us, they're stuffed. Because whenever they want what we sell, they're going to come to us. They're absolutely stuffed. It's like that Buzz Light thing, or wherever the bugs are flying around and says, don't look at the light. He goes, I can't help it. And they go towards the light. How do I know that's true? Because in our family, we don't spend any money with anybody who we don't trust. We don't go to a butcher to buy meat that we don't trust. We don't get our cars fixed in a garage that we don't trust. We don't get our hair cut in a place that we don't trust. We don't ever had our children looked after by people who we don't trust. We don't have maintenance people in the house who we don't trust. We don't spend money, I don't, our family doesn't, with people who we don't trust. We only spend money with people who we trust. Now, here's the great sales thing. Now we don't have to sell anymore. All we're doing is looking to build up groups of people who trust us. Because when they want our thing, they're going to come to us. And they won't be able to help it. So the idea is constantly building that people in the middle who trust us, trust our brand, trust our that they know they'll get treated with respect, that we're here at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, we're here till 8 o'clock on a Friday night. You ring us, we'll treat you with diligence and appropriateness. If we don't think we can help you, we'll point you in the direction of somebody who can. We build trust. Once they trust us and they want what we sell, they'll be pushing the door down. That's why I say the book, thank you very much. The book is about accelerating the growth, going from, we're not going from mediocre bumping along at 5 to 10% growth. This is about 30, 40, 50% growth. It's out there. It's ready to be had. All we've got to do is be trustworthy.
Yeah.
Not hard, is it?
And that's this authenticity, isn't it? And this is for me. I will say you're not a salesperson. You're a problem solver. You've got to really understand what is their problem, and then consider honestly, realistically, can I solve your problem? If you can't, this is your other job in terms of that surprise and delight is, I can't solve that problem because this is what we do, but I know somebody who can that I totally trust. So make a recommend for somebody else, because what goes around comes around, doesn't it? Absolutely. Final thing, I want to have a chat with you because the book, I find, and I completely recommend it. And I'm being really cheeky here because you were so kind to me. You sent me your manuscript, which I read. I've got a sneak preview. I have ordered the Real McCoy thing on Amazon, but I've actually wrapped another book with your cover, which is mine. Hold yours up. Yours looks so much better. I thought I should have your book in my hand. There we go. And it is a beautiful, beautiful, really easy read, and you will find literally there are 120 golden tips. And even though I've been running my business for 20 years, I've taken away at least 35 of them, 40 of them.
You're very kind, Lily. You're very kind.
I would completely recommend, guys, that you log on. And you have another book. I'm going to just do a little plug because you've got another book that you're writing, which is something totally different. I know this is your passion, so we're going to finish on this. Do you just want to share a little bit about the book that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah. So the other book, I finished it last night. Funny enough, and I've been working on it for quite a while. This one was dead easy, but the other one I've written is about bullying, and it's about children in particular being bullied, and the horridness of bullies, and the loneliness and despair that people feel when they constantly feel dejected and isolated and on their own. And but it's a fun book. It's about farts and burps and teachers with hairy legs and earwigs that get trapped in people's ears and nonsense in school and triplets that are born in test tubes and all. It's fun. And the trouble I've got, Lily, is because I'm dyslexic, I have a crazy admission that I've never read a book. So I've never read a book, okay? But I've written a number of them. And so part of the reason why I've never read a book is because my dyslexia is such that once I get to the end of a page, I forget what I've just read. That's my dyslexia.
Right.
So, of course, when you write a book, you have to edit it a number of times. And the funny thing is, I sit at home and I'm reading this book and I'm laughing out loud, and Sam says, if there's somebody in the house, she goes, "What's he laughing at?" She said, "Oh, he's reading his book." And they go, "Strange." Because each time I read it, I'm reading it for the first time. And I'm like, no.
This is so funny. This is so funny.
This is funny. I mean, this is funny. The stuff that's it, honestly. And I've turned the page and I'm literally going, oh, it's funny. So it's very David Walliams. It's aimed at 14-year-olds, boys and girls who, are going through the horrors that we have all been through. Yeah. And if you haven't been through it, you're obviously one of the bullies. So we're around with a bucket for you.
What we have discovered through your work and my work, that actually the bullies are ultimately lovely people that have got low self-esteem. So it's finding that nugget in them as well that you connect with. Roy, I could talk to you all day long. I love it when we get together. You have so many lessons. I think one of the crucial things that I learn, and I hope this brings hope to people who are in business, people who are not in business, people who are teenagers, people who are maybe 50 or 60 years old, I'm going to start again. I want to do something new. You are such a sort of beacon of light for people of all sorts of backgrounds. and it's always that you can always, I think there's a saying, I can't remember whose quote it is, that says, it's never to be too late to be who you might have been. If you've got dyslexia, you can be a best-selling author. Yeah. If you've never run a business, you can start a business. It's never too late.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you so much for your time. It's brilliant to see you. You're more than welcome. Take care. Bye.